What's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back in the video today, and today we're going to be talking about the potential Houston Texans defensive starters for next season, the full 11 potential guys who will possibly be the Houston Texans starting defense next season. A couple of these guys, they're not for sure starters, might have to go through a little bit of a competition. But I think this defense, on a scale of 1 to 10, the way they've improved this offseason, and, through the draft, and not only through the draft, but free agency, and then honestly adding in a just unbelievable smart head coach in DeMeco Ryans to be the runner of that defense. It's so exciting as a Texans fan. I think it's going to be brilliant. Now, realistically, with players-wise, the defense has improved, right? That's of course. But, it's like, yes, they added in Will Anderson Jr., and besides that, they added in some decent pieces. Besides Will Anderson, I think that's the only guy who's gonna have a star impact for this defense that was brought in from the draft and free agency. I like some of the other guys that were brought in, but I think Will Anderson Jr. is going to be the only one who's going to be like a star-type player for this defense. But I like what we already had with the young guys we've drafted in the couple years past with the defense. So that's one thing. And then another thing that is that DeMeco, he changes everything. He's going to make this defense better. Just him, controlling the guys, and him, basically being their mentor. I think for most of these guys being young guys, about 65 to 75% of this offense are really young guys. Only a couple of veterans in the starting defense. Only about like 4 or 5 of these guys are veterans out of the 11 guys, but it's going to be huge, and it's so exciting from coming from a Texans fan. But let's go over it. We're going to start with the defensive ends. Obviously, we already know who's going to be one of the starting defensive ends. It's Will Anderson Jr. I think he's going to win. My opinion, I think he's going to win the Defensive Rookie of the Year next season. I think he's going to have a stud year. But then the second defensive end, this is where it's one of the, I'm talking about how you're going to have a couple competitions. This is one where I kind of see this one possibly being a competition between a defensive end. Now, I think it's going to be Jonathan Grenard, but I think there could be a little bit of a competition between Jonathan Grenard and Jerry Hughes. Jonathan Grenard, he wasn't that healthy last season, but when he was out there, he was solid. But Jerry Hughes had a really good season. He almost had double-digit sacks. Very good veteran. I think it just depends on who plays better in preseason. If Grenard looks like he's going to be healthy, I think both are going to play a lot. But who's going to start? I don't know. I want to say Grenard because I think he has a lot of young talent. I think DeMeco can, and his staff that are new, because our staff last year wasn't really that great and not really great at developing these players. I think hopefully they can make Grenard a better player, but we'll see. Then getting on to the defensive tackle for the rest of the D-line. This one is another thing, like to the Grenard and the Jerry Hughes. This one's a little iffy for me. So I think the two that should be most likely will be starting is Malik Collins and Sheldon Rankins, who was brought in from the New York Jets in free agency at the defensive tackles. But a question mark for me is Roy Lopez, a guy who had a great 2022 and 21 seasons in his first 2 years in the NFL has been great. Is there going to be a competition between either? I don't know which one. I think one of Malik Collins and Sheldon Rankins will be a starter, of course, and then there will be possibly a competition between Malik Collins and Roy Lopez for that second defensive tackle. But I think that the defensive tackle position is really solid. Malik Collins has been great in his 2 years here. Sheldon Rankins played great last year with the Jets. So I think if you stick with Sheldon Rankins and Malik Collins at defensive tackle, you're doing pretty solid there. Then your 3 linebackers. Brought in Denzel Perryman from the Raiders. I think he's going to have a really, really good year here with the Texans. I think he had like 100-something tackles last season. Has been great with tackling, and and just great at stopping the run as well. And I think we'll do great for the Texans. And then staying on the defense for his third season with the Texans, Christian Kirksey. He's a guy that's really, Texans fans, it seems like they forget that he's going to probably be in the Texans linebacker defense. He's a guy who I could see getting traded possibly. Maybe I could see him getting traded in, training camp or preseason. Sometimes you will see some players get flipped for a high draft pick for the next season for 2024. Maybe you flip him for a 5th or 6th round pick in 2024. I don't know. But he's done a really solid job with the Texans here. He's been a really good leader. He controls the linebackers, even though he might not be the best linebacker, but he's a great leader. And I really like what he's done here in his 2 years, and I think it'd be okay to let him keep starting at the linebacker position with the other 2 linebackers. And then at linebacker, another Christian Harris at linebacker, guy we drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round last season in 2020 in the 2022 draft. Had a really good ending in 2022. Was really solid for the Texans at the end of the season. I think he's going to carry that on over to the 2023 season and have an outstanding 2023 season. Then getting to the secondary with your cornerbacks and your safeties. All right, so first safety, that's going to be Derek Stingley Jr., that's for sure. I mean, unless he's not healthy. But here's where another competition comes into hand. I think there will be a competition between Steven Nelson and Desmond King Jr. These 2 guys both had great 2022 seasons. Both did really solid for the Texans defense. But I think, Steven Nelson's more fit for the cornerback position. I think Steven Nelson will end up winning that second corner position job and be the second corner for the Texans in week 1. Then for safeties, obviously Jalen Petrie and Jimmy Ward. Saw Jimmy Ward's presser today. It's the first time he talked to Texans media for the first time as a Houston Texan today. Really cool guy here we got here. He's coming from San Francisco where, some of his old staff is here with D'Amico Ryans and someone else. I can't remember who we hired from San Francisco staff on the defense. But I'm just really excited for Jimmy Ward. I think he's going to have a really solid season. He's definitely upgrade at the second safety. I think he's going to be a really good mentor for Jalen Petrie as well. And that's really it for the defense. Guys that will be on the bench that will help you a lot off the defense. Here we go. Here's some of the guys that are going to help you a lot off the bench. Desmond King Jr., Henry To'oto, who you drafted. I think he's going to be big. I think he could have a consideration to maybe be a starter, but since he was a 4th round pick, I think he will start the season off the bench. But so a list of the guys that will be a good impact that are not starters: Roy Lopez, Henry To'oto, Desmond King Jr., probably Tavier Thomas as well, and then I think some other guys maybe possibly. I'm trying to think who else will do good. Jerry Hughes as well. I think a lot of the guys that are off the bench will have great seasons as well for the Texans because, these guys aren't playing the whole game. These starter guys aren't playing the whole game. And some get hurt. That's reality. And some will miss a game. So guys that are off the bench like Hughes and Desmond King and Henry Toto and the other guys I mentioned that will be a big part of the Texans defense, even though they're not starters. They will probably have a chance to start a couple games, if not more than a couple games in 2023, if someone misses a game or 2 or even multiple weeks. I know it's, you don't want to think like that, but it's reality with football. People get hurt. People even miss, 1 game just to being in a small injury, not a huge injury. But I think for right now, as of what is today? I don't even know what day it is. As of May 4th, as of right now, I think that this should be the Houston Texans starting defense for week 1. Will Anderson Jr., Jonathan Grenard, Sheldon Rankings, and Malik Collins on the defensive line. Denzel Perryman, Christian Kirksey, Christian Harris as the linebackers. Steven Nelson, Derek Stingley Jr. as the corners. And then Jalen Petrie and Jamie Ward as the safeties, most likely. And off the bench, Jerry Hughes, Roy Lopez, Desmond King, Henry To'oto. If I miss anybody else, sorry. But Tavier Thomas, and then you got your good guys off the bench with those 5 guys right there. So I'm excited for next year's defense. I think it's going to be a very, very much more, improved than it was last year. I think it's going to be very exciting to watch. That's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace out.